Microsoft, just paid $8.5 billion for Skype. But they aren't the only players in the web-based communications world. California-based 8x8 is taking a business-to-business approach. Bryan Martin is the chief executive of 8x8, and he joins me now for our CEO sit-down. He joins us from San Francisco. Bryan, good to have you with us on Bloomberg. Explain for people that don't know about 8x8. This is voice over the Internet protocol. How does it work?
That's right. Thanks, Pimm, for having us on the show. So we use existing internet connections that come into just about any business these days, whether it's a mom-and-pop retail store up to a Fortune 50 company, and we layer data and voice on top of that. So you can think about the term cloud is out there in terms of getting your servers and your information into the cloud. We actually take businesses' phone systems into the cloud, and we've got more than 24,000 businesses in the U.S. who use us as their only phone service.
Now, give us some examples of the customers that you have.
Yeah, a lot of our customers are, again, very small customers, but people like State Farm Insurance, Allstate Insurance, Adecco North America, McKesson are all reference customers who use us on a much larger scale. And even though they may have adopted voice over IP in their campus and headquarter equipment many years ago, they're using companies like ours to actually hook up their remote employees, their branch offices, kind of their smaller regional offices that aren't as easily covered with a big enterprise solution. There's been a big shakeup in the whole business phone system market with companies like Nortel exiting the space in recent years.
Now, Bryan, as you just described, a lot of data is flowing over the Internet. Does that have to compete for bandwidth with voice transmissions?
So it's really interesting. We have a lot of financial companies, as an example, who might have Bloomberg terminals and so forth, and they're just creating an avalanche of data these days, video feeds, everything going on. Voice, by comparison, every 30 milliseconds or so, which is a long time in the computer world, you just get a little drip of data coming out of that IP phone. So what's important for our services is to make sure that you've got local area networks and routers that know that when they see that drip of voice data and it's real-time data, to go ahead and put it out first. And that's what any router built in the last year or two knows how to do that, and it just works automatically.
Well, you mentioned routers, and I want to get your thoughts on the customers that may be buying this equipment, the telecommunications firms. Do you see them still spending a lot of money to build out the network to accommodate all of this usage?
There is, once you get past our service and onto kind of the public internet and the backbone of the U.S. communications market, there is still unlit fiber everywhere. There's lots of room for bandwidth. So even though you've got companies building infrastructure to get more mobile, which is another aspect of what we provide, there's a lot of space out there on the telecommunications networks.
Now, having said that, what about your financial position? Do you have a lot of cash flow in the company, and when are you going to be profitable, are you?
Yes, we've been profitable for 13 of the last 14 quarters. We've been publicly traded on the NASDAQ since '97. Last year, our fiscal year ended March 31st. We generated nearly $9 million of free cash flow from our operations. We actually returned $7.8 million to our shareholders in the form of a buyback, and we are profitable and growing very, very aggressively in this space.
Now, as I introduce this segment, we know that Microsoft paid $8.5 billion for Skype. What do you think you're worth?
Well, 50 times cash flow works for me, and we can sign that deal up this afternoon. But it is interesting how voice over IP in recent years kind of fell out of favor with investors, and that was in the wake of some kind of train wreck IPOs that happened out there. It's interesting how, as we get into the cloud vocabulary and these managed hosting companies like Terramark and Savvis getting taken out for extremely large multiples, and then the Skype acquisition coming on the heels of that, we think investor interest is definitely returning in the space. And 8x8 has a PE ratio of about 27, so we've got a ratio again as well.
All right, I want to thank you very much. Bryan Martin, he's the chairman and chief executive of 8x8, a voice over IP company.